baseball has had its giants. Cobb, Williams, Mays, but none quite like Babe Ruth. In an era when home runs were a rare spectacle, he turned them into an everyday expectation, 714 of them, towering shots that seemed to defy physics. His bat didn't just send balls over fences, it sent the entire sport into a new age. They called him the Sultan of Swat, a man whose name could fill stadiums and silence pitchers before he even stepped to the plate. Yet for all his glory, there was a man behind the myth, one shaped by hardship, excess, and an unshakable bond with the game. What made Babe Ruth not just the greatest player of his time, but the legend who still stands alone in baseball's pantheon? George Herman Ruth Jr. was born on February 6, 1895, in a cramped row house in Baltimore, Maryland, the first of 8 children, though only 2 would survive into adulthood. His parents, working long hours in their family saloon, had little time to watch over their restless, mischievous boy. By the time he was 7, Ruth had skipped school too often, wandered the streets, and learned habits far too adult for his age. At just 7 years old, his parents made a decision that would alter his life forever. They sent him to St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys, a reformatory and orphanage run by the Xaverian brothers. It was a strict, almost monastic place, where discipline was meted out with as much force as education. Yet inside its high brick walls, young George found something unexpected, a refuge in the game of baseball. Under the patient guidance of Brother Matthias Boutelier, Ruth learned to channel his boundless energy into the diamond. The tall, imposing monk taught him the mechanics of hitting and the craft of pitching. Even as a teenager, Ruth's swing was a thing of violence and beauty, loud, fast, and undeniable. In the echo of bat against ball, the boy from Baltimore began to see a way out, a path to something far beyond the orphanage gates. By the time Ruth was 19, his talent had grown too big to be contained within the dusty fields of St. Mary's. Brother Matthias arranged for a local scout to see him play, and the result was immediate. Jack Dunn, owner and manager of the minor league Baltimore Orioles, signed him to a contract in 1914. At first, the other players jokingly called him Dunn's new Babe, and the nickname stuck for life, Babe Ruth. Ruth's left arm was electric. As a pitcher, he could dominate a game with raw power, and within months, his performance caught the attention of the Boston Red Sox. That same year, Boston purchased his contract, and Ruth's professional journey began in earnest. In just a few seasons, he became one of the most formidable left-handed pitchers in the league, winning 23 games in 1916 and posting a minuscule 1.75 ERA. But there was something else, something that couldn't be ignored. Whenever Ruth picked up a bat, the ball exploded off it in a way no one had ever seen. His home runs weren't just clearing fences, they were clearing entire ballparks, sending crowds into frenzies. The Red Sox began to use him more in the lineup, and his batting eclipsed even his stellar pitching. Then came the moment that would change baseball history. In 1919, the Red Sox sold Ruth to the New York Yankees for $100,000, a staggering sum at the time. The deal would not only transform Ruth's career, but ignite one of the most famous rivalries in sports and usher in a new era for the game itself. When Babe Ruth put on the pinstripes of the New York Yankees in 1920, he didn't just join a new team, he ignited a revolution. That first season in New York, he hit an unheard of 54 home runs, more than any other team in the American League managed that year. He wasn't merely hitting home runs, he was redefining what baseball could be. The Yankees, once a middling club, became the most feared lineup in the league, drawing record crowds wherever they played. Ruth's swing was a spectacle in itself, an all-out, full-bodied lash that seemed to channel every ounce of his frame into the ball. Fans came not just to watch the Yankees win, but to witness Ruth at the plate, the way you'd watch an artist paint or a storm roll in. Over the next decade, he would lead the league in home runs 12 times, claim 7 World Series titles, and set the single-season home run record at 60 in 1927, a mark that would stand for 34 years. That 27 Yankees team, famously dubbed Murderer's Row, remains one of the greatest in history. With Ruth and Lou Gehrig anchoring the lineup, they overwhelmed opponents with a blend of power and swagger the sport had never seen. Yet Ruth's impact wasn't just statistical. He was a walking headline, a man who brought baseball into the radio age, into living rooms, into the national conversation. He became the face of the Roaring '20s, signing endorsement deals, starring in films, and embodying the era's larger-than-life spirit. In every way, Ruth made baseball bigger. Bigger swings, bigger crowds, bigger dreams. And in doing so, he cemented his place as the sport's first true global superstar. Behind the towering home runs and roaring crowds, Babe Ruth lived a life that often mirrored the excess of his era. The same boundless appetite that drove him on the field spilled over into his personal life. Lavish parties, endless banquets, and late nights that sometimes blurred into early mornings. His love for food, drink, and indulgence became legendary, and while fans adored his larger-than-life persona, the toll on his body was undeniable. His weight fluctuated wildly, and there were stretches when his conditioning slipped so far that it affected his play. Managers and teammates sometimes grew frustrated, but Ruth's bat had a way of silencing most criticism. Still, there were clashes, most notably with Yankees management over discipline and salary disputes. In 1925, after a spring training marked by illness and speculation about his lifestyle, Ruth was hospitalized for what newspapers dramatically dubbed the bellyache heard round the world. Officially, it was gastritis. Unofficially, it was the price of years spent living without limits. The twilight of his career was bittersweet. By 1934, his reflexes had dulled, his speed had vanished, and the game was catching up to him. In 1935, he signed with the Boston Braves, hoping for one last spark, but the magic was fading. Though he managed a final, unforgettable burst, a 3-homer game at Pittsburgh's Forbes Field, it was clear that the Sultan of Swat was nearing the end. The cheers were still loud, but they now carried a tinge of farewell. Babe Ruth retired in 1935, but his presence in baseball never truly left. In 1936, he was part of the inaugural class inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, a fitting home for a man who had reshaped the game itself. His career numbers: 714 home runs, a .342 batting average, an OPS of 1.164, remain almost mythical, achieved in an era when the very idea of such power seemed impossible. Yet his legacy extends far beyond statistics. Ruth transformed baseball from a strategic, low-scoring pastime into a spectacle of power and drama. He brought the game into the modern age, making it America's pastime not just in name, but in spirit. He was the first true sports celebrity, an icon who could be recognized in every corner of the country, whose smile could sell newspapers, and whose presence could fill ballparks to the rafters. Off the field, he never forgot the boy he once was. He visited countless children's hospitals, often slipping money into the hands of kids who reminded him of his own beginnings. His generosity, like his swing, was unrestrained. When he died in 1948, more than 75,000 mourners lined up to pay their respects, filing past his casket at Yankee Stadium. Today, the name Babe Ruth still carries a magic no statistic can fully capture. He was more than a player, more than a champion. He was baseball's heartbeat, its larger-than-life storyteller. The man is gone, but the legend will always round the bases.